So I'm having a problem. My ramp deck grew to be 93 cards because every time I found something I liked, I threw it in there, and I didn't take a whole lot of it back out. So now I have a massive deck all over my floor. The cards and sleeves, which is basically these ones down, was the deck. Now, don't get me wrong, the deck functioned perfectly, did what I wanted it to, ended up destroying a lot of people, but I feel it's time to perfect it to what it should be. I was going to type up a giant post and put it up like, oh, this is the fucking thousands of cards I have, and then I decided that's one of the biggest wastes of time I could ever do. So I just made a list, well, not made a list, spread out all the cards that have ever been in my ramp deck. Now, let's see here, start with my little guys that I love. Of course, Overgrown Battlement, Wall of Tanglecord, Wall of Vines. That's how I get all of my mana. That's how I get it so damn fast. I don't like to rely on spells like Cultivate and Growth Spasm or Explore, wherever those ones went. Still haven't found some of them. Or Harrow, like that, because spells can be countered. A lot of my friends run control decks, so my ramp deck eventually became modeled after a way to ramp without being controlled. So I ended up relying on my walls because my other friend ran his Strange Vampire deck, which always bent everything over. Don't know how, because, you know, he was doing the same thing I was doing, just throwing cards in there, and he still bent everyone over most games until I got this running right and, you know, turned the tables. But main mana producers would be Overgrown Battlement combined with my other walls. Of course, still Druiga Tree Speaker. Can't get rid of him. Now, my land cards, I had 2 Kalani Gardens, 2 Tectonic Edge, and 2 of Mystifying Maze. I saw how strategic using these 2 were, so I held on to them as well as that. But since I don't have any cards that say search your library for a land card and put it down, the Kalani Garden has actually been a drag on my deck. But since one of my card shops I frequently visit has gotten a copy of Primeval Titan and is willing to sell it to me for $6 because I'm like his favorite customer, I will have 1 copy of Primeval Titan in my deck at last, so I will keep just 2 Kalani Gardens to search for whenever he comes into play. And hopefully they won't already be on the field or in my hand when I play him. As for my middle cards, the guys that are meant to distract, you know, turn 2, turn 3, the guys that you're dropping then. Wormcoil Engine, Garruk, and, you know, he's more closer to turn 3, turn 4, Karn Liberated, just to keep everyone busy, trying to either get rid of them or just helping me ramp and get where I need to be. And of course, Phyrexian Swarmlord, which I put him in there. It wasn't a full infect deck, but just having him there, and I would play him, that would throw people off so crazily. They would start trying to protect themselves from poison, rather than realizing that, you know, 2 turns from now, Emrakul's coming out, or Ulamog, Kozilek, which I'm probably dropping him pretty soon and putting in another Ulamog. I just have to find another copy of him. No one has it. I mean, I have 4 Emrakuls. 4 freaking Emrakuls. 1 Ulamog. Messed up. My favorite power creatures that I have in my deck. Wolfbriar Elemental, he only costs 4 to play, but every time you kick him, which is 1 green mana, you put a 2/2 green wolf token, creature token onto the battlefield for each time it was kicked. So, you know, when it's like turn 6 or something, if the game is getting drug out that far, and you're sitting there with, you know, like 2 or 3 overgrown battlements, Jaruga, and some walls around, and you can kick up like 15 mana. Well, you can swarm your opponent with little wolf creature tokens. Otherwise, he comes out as an early attacker, and I can normally kick him at least twice. So that's a good distraction card. He only costs 4 to play. Anything on top of that is extra creatures for you. Blockers, attackers, whatever you need them to be. Whereas, here he is, Viridian Corruptor, another one of the mid cards. He only costs 3 to play, but I only have him in my deck because of his effect. He's a 2/2 with Infect, so of course having another Infect card would make you think that I'm trying to lean towards Infect, but I'm not. It's just entertaining for me, I guess. But the main reason he's in here is because when he comes into the battlefield, I destroy target artifact. So it's almost like having a Naturalize, only it's a creature, which of course I run just one Naturalize, because I almost never need it, but just in case, I like to know that it's somewhere in my deck. Spellskite, which I think everyone knows what he's used for. Beast Within, you know, when your enemy's dropping some kind of insane card that you don't like looking at, turn into a 3/3 green beast and shove it up their ass. Quicksilver Amulet, costs 4 to summon that, and then its effect is for 4 mana, you can put a creature card from your hand onto the battlefield. So that means fucking 4 mana to play Emrakul, Platinum, Forniclex, Kozilek, Ulamog, anyone. Shoot, even just to mess with people, I'd use 4 mana just to play an Overgrown Battlement, which I can't wait to do that because I love clowning in the middle of a game. Back to my main strong cards. Got Kilani Hydra over here. He basically has affinity for all green creatures. For every green creature on the field, he costs 1 less to play. He costs 8 to play originally, and he's an 8/8 with Trample. So, you know, a few cards in, since most of them are green, he ends up being, you know, like 5 or 6 mana. So turn 2 and I'm dropping an 8/8 on the field. You know, who's got the big balls? Blightsteel Colossus. He costs 12 to play. He's an 11/11 indestructible with Trample and Infect. Nothing's better than when I swing with a Blightsteel Colossus and they block with a 1/1, and then they're like, I'll just block with him. And I'm like, so calculate the damage? And they go, yeah, calculate the damage. And I'm like, he has Trample, you lose. That's 10 poison counters. Platinum Empyrean. I have a feeling I'm dropping him to the sideboard or removing him from the deck altogether. The only reason I like this guy, he costs 8, he's an 8/8, and his effect is your life total can't change. How good is that? I've only used him twice in an effective way. I was playing a Tempered Steel deck, and he was the only creature that I had that had any form of attack. I had so many walls out, but of course only 8 of my walls, well 7 because I only run 3 of him, only 7 of my walls have reach. So they're attacking me with all these signal pests and shit like that, and then I dropped him onto the field. And the kid was like, oh, nice, I've seen that card. And then he attacks me again. I was like, I'll just let it go through. And he's like, you lose. And I was like, nope, my life total cannot change. Vorniclex, Voice of Hunger, obviously needed in a ramp deck. Whenever I tap a land for mana, it's doubled. Add 1 mana to your mana pool of any type that land produced. And then when your opponent taps a land, they don't get to untap it the next turn. Garruk's Horde. I play with the top card of my library revealed. If it's a creature, I cast it. How good is that? Gaia's Revenge. Some people think that it's retarded to have that in my deck. It's an 8/5 for 7 mana. But he can't be countered. He can't be the target of non-green spells or abilities from non-green sources. And he has haste, so he comes out swinging. For only 7 mana, a creature that can be countered, that has haste, I think that's a damn good deal. So I've definitely left him in my deck, at least one of them. I used to run 4 of him, and that was back when I first started, and I couldn't find Emrakul, couldn't find Ulamog, but I had plenty of him. And then, you know, Spawn Sire of Ulamog all the way over here, and Pathraiser, and the Artisan of Kozilek. That betrays wherever I put that card. It's somewhere around here. But Used to run a lot of him. Love that card. Green Sun Zenith. Basically, cast any green creature from your deck as long as you have enough mana. Summoning Trap. I only own 3 copies of this card because I can't find any. And I have to say this card isn't too effective against the decks that I've been playing lately. A lot of control decks, but yeah, they just kind of counter 2 in a row, and then I'm like, oh, well, cool. Obstinate Baloth. If I ever get more copies of Green Sun Zenith, I am running more copies of him. He's a 4/4, cost 4. You get 4 life when you play him. Melira, the Outcast, is basically cancels poison. Can't get poison counters. Your creatures can't get -1/-1 counters. Creatures your opponents control lose infect. There are a lot of infect decks out here now. Well, when I say a lot, I mean 2 out of the like 10 guys that always come to Friday Night Magic run infect. Well, guess what? I'm gonna drop one of these, and they're gonna go, oh shit. Yeah, all those 2/2s are great now. But that's the breakdown of my deck. And I have to somehow get rid of most of these cards so that I can reduce it to at least 65. I was going to make a giant list with a big ass post of all the cards that I have and what I want to run and what I think is good and why, and I was like, you know what? I can just make a video and it'll take just as long for me to say it as it would to type it. Just because it takes me 10 minutes to find the fucking A button on a keyboard.